If you spend enough time around the water, you'll learn something pretty quickly. The surface is a liar. You can look out across the bay and everything seems calm, still, quiet, peaceful. But underneath, there's movement, currents, pressure, tide shifting beneath the surface. And if you don't know how to read the water, you'll miss what's really happening.
A good fisherman doesn't just cast blindly. He watches. He studies the current. He reads the subtle signs most people miss, because understanding always comes before action. And sometimes, what matters most is what you can't see.
My name is Dr. Nathan Adkison, a veteran, chaplain, and outdoorsman. Here at Adkison Outdoors, we like to talk about faith, freedom, family, and the outdoors, and sometimes the quiet battles that people carry long after the war is over.
I've known veterans who look completely fine on the outside. Strong, disciplined, calm. They went to work, paid bills, they took care of their families. By every outward measure, they were okay. But inside, something was broken. Not because they were weak, not because they lacked courage, but because somewhere along the way, something violated their conscience. Something happened. Or maybe something failed to happen. And ever since, they've carried something heavy. Guilt, shame, regret, anger, betrayal, silence. This is the challenge with moral injury. You may recognize the wound, but recognizing the wound is only the beginning.
And think about a field medic. When someone cries out for help, the medic doesn't just rush in and start throwing bandages around. He assesses. How bad is the bleeding? How deep is the wound? Is there internal damage? Because compassion matters. But compassion without understanding can become panic. The same is true for moral injury. Before healing begins, we have to understand how deep the wound goes.
Here's the hard part. Not every wound cuts equally deep. Two people can walk through similar experiences and carry very different scars. One may struggle for months. Another may battle for decades. That's why the question matters. How deep is the wound? Has it damaged relationships, sleep, identity, faith? Has shame become part of the story they tell themselves? Has trust been shattered? Has hope disappeared? Has faith begun to collapse? These are the questions that matter, because before healing begins, we must understand what the wound is doing right now.
Over the years, chaplains, counselors, and researchers have developed tools to assess moral injury, not to reduce the suffering to numbers and not to turn pain into statistics, but to understand the severity of the wound. Some assessments focus on exposure, like what happened. Others focus on symptoms, like what is the wound doing now. Some focus on shame, others focus on trust and betrayal, but the deeper assessments ask something more important. What is happening in the soul?
As a chaplain, this matters deeply to me, because moral injury is often more than psychological. Very often, it's spiritual. It changes how someone sees themselves, how they see others, and sometimes how they see God. I've seen guilt become isolation, shame become silence, betrayal become bitterness. These aren't just emotional wounds, they're soul wounds. And soul wounds require soul care.
Sometimes healing begins with something simple, telling the truth, naming the wound, allowing someone to sit in the ashes with you. Healing doesn't happen overnight. It requires truth, grace, time, and people willing to walk beside the wounded. We can identify moral injury. We can measure its severity. But a diagnosis is not a cure. And understanding the wound is not the same as healing it. The deeper question remains, can a wounded soul heal? I believe healing is possible, even for the deepest wounds. And in the next video, we'll talk about what healing actually looks like. This is Adkison Outdoors. Faith, freedom, family, and the outdoors. Until next time, leave tracks worth following. in the woods and in your life. God bless.